Alright guys, so welcome. I decided I'm a wee bit bored right now waiting for things to happen, so I decided, you know what? I never made a thought video on the Eden raids as a whole. I did for Eden's Gate, but not for Reverse or Promise, so I figured, you know what? Why don't we go and let's just do a casual one for now. Don't worry, I'll probably make a more in-depth one for Pandaemonium stuff, maybe. But for now, let's just take it a bit casual and we'll do one of these tier list things since people seem to love tier lists for some fucking reason. Uh, they're fine, but we'll see. Um, my opinions are probably going to just be based on how my experiences were with them. Obviously, they're all going to be completely biased to that, but um, it's less going to be like. So here's the important thing to note. Um, when I played through all these raids, I was on 200 ping on an American server while I'm in Scotland, so that's going to come into play for at least 3 fights, um, and it's going to negatively impact those more than anything. Um, and another thing to note, I was also on PS4, but that is super minor because I really don't think that changes anything, and I'm still on controller. For Eden's Promise, I was on PC though. Anyway, so let's just get started with it. We'll do it from the first one onward because that makes the most sense. Alright, so this is E1. So at first I was gonna put this at like B because I didn't really know where to put this one, but the thing is, when I think about it, I don't even remember this fight very well. Like I did it, I farmed it and everything. I did it way more than any Eden's verse raid, and yet I don't even really remember this fight. So for that, I'm gonna have to put it in a C. Like it was okay, it wasn't bad. It was just forgettable. It wasn't really difficult either. Oh, another thing is I play Dragoon on every single one of these raids. I main and play Dragoon for pretty much all of them. I never played anything else. I think a couple I might have played Paladin on E3 and Machinist on E11, but that was about it. I even did Dancer on E10. Don't even ask how I managed to do that. So from a melee perspective and a Dragoon specific perspective, that's gonna tilt some of these a bit. Um, okay, so E2. This fight is the hardest one to rank, in my opinion. Out of all of these, this one's the hardest one to rank because, alright, so for the first couple of weeks, you were going to see most of the fight. And the problem with that is, most of the fight is quite good. I would put it in B tier. But the problem is that at the end of the fight, there's a mechanic called Quietus, and that mechanic is awful. At least I found it awful. I think it was a terrible mechanic. And the thing is, you would skip it so easily after like week 2, like week 3 and onwards. You were probably skipping this mechanic in a decent group, but before that, this fight was awful because you always had to do Quietus and you would always wipe. So I'm gonna have to rank it based on how it was when it came out. And how it was when it came out, you still had to do Quietus. But just remember that once you started skipping Quietus, it goes to B tier, but once you're not skipping Quietus, it's D tier in my opinion. I really think and hate it. Now, if you think that one's controversial, wait till I tell you about this one, because I loved this fight. I thought it was a great fight. And I know that is weird because most people think this fight is the most boringest thing ever. E3S Leviathan. I thought it was quite great. Um, I do have one issue with it. There was a time when you have to split left and right groups and the arena's broken in the middle, and then your battle it and they decided to come up then, and so you had to hold it weird, and I didn't like that. But other than that, I thought this fight was great. Um, I didn't really party finder most of these. I think I party finder this one the most out of all of them. Out of all of the Eden's Gate and Versus ones, this is the one I party finder the most. Where would I put it? I'm gonna put it A tier. Sorry guys, but it's going A tier. Um, I know most people are gonna disagree with me on that one, but I think it was a great fight. Also, I jumped off the edge at the start one time. and it was weird. I was running and I was about to press my potion, and I pressed my potion and elusive jump at the same time. And I don't usually do stuff like that, and I thought that was quite funny. Okay, so this one's not going to be controversial. I think this one's a universally loved raid. Titan. It's a fucking amazing raid. I have a couple of problems with it, but I think relative to all these, I would still put it in S tier without even thinking about it, because it is my favorite raid out of all of these ones. I think Titan was the best. The problems I have with it is one, and this was kind of ping-ish. If you were doing that stupid fast dodge with the bomb boulders at the start, that is kind of annoying, especially when you have 200 ping. But that's super minor, relatively speaking. The other issue I have is that, okay, so the fight isn't too difficult overall, but I think I even said this in my video. It starts off the hardest it will ever be, and it ends the easiest it'll ever be. Like it's it start it degrades in difficulty the longer the fight goes on, and I really don't understand why it does that. Clearly it's not enough to make me not put it at S tier, but I think it's the best one out of all of these, and the music is great too. And even though I'm not a big fan of singing, um, I was going to say something. Yeah, the best thing about this fight, and they really need to do this going forward, is they did so they didn't have the door boss, which I like, and they didn't do a cutscene, which I like. But we had the best of both because we got a wee thing in the front, and we still got a cutscene, but it was like a cutscene while you were still being able to play, and he still did his transition and all that. It was amazing. We need more like that. We don't need stupid cutscenes about a girl going fucking naked and getting a dragon wrap around her. And we didn't need fucking stupid door bosses where we have this fucking, I don't know, I'm not even super against door bosses. I think this is the perfect way to do it because you get to keep all your stuff, and the fight flows like perfectly. It's a really great fight. Oh god. Oh. Alright, so I regret making this video now because every time I have to talk about this fight, um, anytime I have to talk about this fight, how do you make a new one? Can you make a new one? Yeah, you can. Yeah. Yeah, so yeah, so Ramu, you can go there. Most people probably won't know what I'm talking about, but this fight is the worst fight ever made because I'm sorry, but any fight that you have where just because you have 200 ping, which isn't even that uncommon, um and you do a mechanic perfectly how it's supposed to be done, and you can even see your character not get hit by the AoE or the horse dashing, which is what it is that fucks you over, and you still get knocked off. Yeah, that is just unforgivable. No other fight has ever done that. Like, no other raid tier has ever done that. No ultimate, no savage, no extreme, no dungeon, nothing. This is the only raid tier, and this fight in particular mainly, that's ever fucked me with ping. And I don't get it. Like, seriously, if you didn't believe me, I'll even link it in the description, the video. But the video is called Why I Hate E5S. It's just like a 20-second clip, and it is actually so dumb, and people didn't even believe me when I was progging it. I had to record it to show them, but you sit there, you get knocked back by Ramu, and you're supposed to get knocked back to the edge so the horses don't hit you. My character's at the wall with everyone else, I don't even move, and then I get knocked away and they don't. It's so fucking bullshit. I'm sorry, but this fight is awful. The music is great, even though it's got singing in it. And honestly, if it wasn't for that, it would probably be a B tier. But because of that, I'm sorry, but you are awful, Ramu. Um, okay, so E6S is the worst fight ever made. Okay, right, let me be a little bit fair. This fight is the second worst fight ever made, except it's not because we still have X-Def Savage, not Neo X-Def, just first phase, Demon Shadownook, and Alter Roy. Those are all worse than this fight, but not worse than Ramu. So E6S is, I think it's a really bad fight, as a melee and a Dragoon specifically. Okay, so as a Dragoon, half the time the arena gets split in half, and if you touch the middle, you die instantly. The problem is, if you're not playing perfectly, your jumps are probably at least one time going to align to where if you jump, you're going to hit that middle thing. So if you play perfectly, it's going to be fine, but no one's going to be playing perfectly all the time, and it just feels so fucking bad whenever that happens. It's especially for me when I'm fucking clipping half my GCDs because of my stupid ping. Yeah, that was an awful experience. And the thing is this fight out of all of these has the most potential, but I think so. What I think they should have done is, I think they should have. Alright, they need to get rid of those stupid fucking tower things, tornado things, what the tanks have to take to cleave in Rakta phase, because I'm not even a tank, but that is fucking stupid. You have to go all the way out and lose all that uptime? Nah, man. That is so dumb. Alright, get rid of that. Extend to the phase where you fight both of them at the same time, because you never really get a Savage fight where you have to fight two bosses at the same time. But that phase lasts like 1 minute. It's so short. I think that phase needs to be longer. I think the Ifrit phase needs to be a little bit shorter. Garuda maybe a little bit shorter too, and Raktapasta a little bit shorter, just to make that phase a bit longer. Actually, I would have preferred it if we didn't have the two intro phases in Savage at all, but they have to be there, so working in the parameters of how they've put the fight, I would extend the part where you fight both of them at the same time, because I think that's the most interesting part of the fight. But yeah, as a melee, as a Dragoon, this fight is fucking awful. But it has so much potential, I wish they could have done it. Speaking of potential, okay, so this is the worst. Nah, I'm not even gonna joke for this one. No. This one's actually the best of all the Eden's verses, no question about it. B tier. Okay, this one's a bit of an unfair B tier because it only gets B tier because the other three fights suck so bad that this one looks way better than the other three. And again, the reason is my ping and playing on a Dragoon, because this is the only fight of that entire tier where being a melee and being a Dragoon and being 200 ping has no bearing on the fight at all. There is no issues with any of those. So the reason why I would put it lower in a fairer situation is, I think, so when you go in normal mode, it really looks like the potential for Savage is that the combination of how the birds go through the portals is going to be so random, and you have to like always keep an eye out. But in practice, what actually happens is it's actually got the Guardian problem, O7S. It's once you see the thing start, you know exactly where to go, and you don't even have to look at any of the portals at all. Like it should be more random than that. I don't know. In fact, normal mode is more random than Savage, and the reason I say that is in normal mode, the portals are sometimes on the left and sometimes on the right. Like it doesn't change anything, but you have to like on Savage, I'm pretty sure they're always on the same. They're always going to be like on the right at one part on one mechanic or left on another, but they're never going to be like, oh, sometimes it's on the right for the first time you see the portals, but sometimes they're on the left. It's super minor and it really doesn't matter, but I just think it's funny that normal mode has more RNG to it than Savage does. And the final phase with the tornado, I mean, it looks cool. It's quite funny. I don't really remember it much though. Yeah, so B tier. But realistically, I'd probably put it as a C if it wasn't for the other fights on this tier being so bad. I really hate Eden's verse. I think it's the worst fucking tier they ever made. Like, it is so bad. I think it, and the thing is that it's the only tier where, like, I don't know, like, I think the music is good. Like the music of Ramu is good. The music of Raktapaska is okay. It doesn't even sound like Final Fantasy music, but it sounds more like Pokemon. But alright. Um, I don't really care about fan servicey remixes, to be honest with you. Like I'm a huge Final Fantasy fan. I play all of them, and I love all of them pretty much. But I really don't care for fan service, which Eden's verse has the most fan service of all of them. Okay, no, that's not true. It has the exact same amount of fan service as Eden's Gate, to be honest. But shut the hell up. Um, so yeah, I really hate Eden's verse, and so to finish it off, we're going to talk about Shiva. You get your right. So this is the worst fight ever made. I'm actually going to keep it here this time. And you want to know why I'm going to keep it here? I'll give you 3 words. More than 3 words, actually. One, light rampant. That's 1 word, even though it's 2 words. Shut up. Two, walking through fucking puddles that are supposed to cleanse your doom, and you don't realize it in time because you just walk through it instead of actually picking it up, because that is fucking fair. I'm not even talking about the dragon heads. Popping the dragon heads happened to everyone. I'm pretty sure that happened to everyone. The rule was always stand in front of the heads, don't walk into them or behind them. That's fine, okay? But the puddles they leave behind that you got to cleanse yourself from, just walking through them, they don't even move. They just sit there on the floor and you can walk right through them and not even pick them up. I don't even know if this was unique to my ping or not, but that was awful. And the third thing is everyone doing anti-knockback mirrors. You thought Ramu was bad for ping. At least there I didn't have to do anything to die. In anti-knockback mirrors, the timing of pressing that arm's length is so bloody tight. That's awful. Like it is so bad. And to be fair, that's more of a problem of a strat rather than the actual mechanic. But I never got to do the actual mechanic properly because everyone did anti-knockback mirrors like since week fucking 2, so it doesn't even matter. Um, so that is 3 mechanics that are in the fight that you have to do every time that are so bad just because I'm playing from a different country. I don't know if you get my point yet, that the ping issues are bad. I mean, light rampant doesn't actually have any issues with ping, I'll give it that, but do I even need to explain light rampant? It is the most infamous mechanic in recent memory. I don't even I get it because it isn't even that hard, but oh my god, to everyone it was so hard. No one, Ilya strat. Sorry, Mr. Ilya, you like I don't blame. So it's called Ilya strat, but I don't blame the person who made the strat because um, if you make a strat early, it's going to be bad no matter what. Most likely, it's going to be bad. And then you yourself evolve from that strat. But the problem is, Party Finder is fucking brain dead, and they always just use the lowest common strat, the most common strat they will always see. They always just attach themselves to it instead of actually trying to get better, which is a big issue in itself. But there's nothing you can really do about that, is there? So Ilya strat wasn't very nice. To be fair, there wasn't very much nice strats for that fight. I've only cleared this fight 8 times compared to like the 15, 20, maybe even more than that times I've cleared any other fight. It was that fucking awful. I'm not sure which one's worse. I think I will give Shiva the worst one because she has that goddamn cutscene in the middle, which is the worst thing she could have ever had. That cutscene should just go. No cutscenes in Savage, please. Just go cutscenes. And all the other issues I've said amount more than Ramu's one issue. And also, I'm not a big fan of singing. If they took the singing out of that song and just had the tune, I would have been fine with it. Alright, but that's pure personal. I know a lot of people like singing. Side note, by the way, I think the new tier, or at least from normal mode, is super bland, and I really don't like much of the music from it. But maybe my opinions will change later. We'll get to that one day. But today we'll focus on it. Focusing on Eden. Okay, so Eden's Promise. This tier was super easy, but except for right, this tier, except from this fight, relatively speaking, was super easy, but it's also quite fun. Oh, and one thing before I go on, actually, I'll give you one thing, Shiva. You had the tightest DPS check of any Savage since Midas. Like, the fact that people had to go get ruby weapons to beat you, good job, man. We need more fights like that on Savage. Like, you you have the lowest DPS check I've ever seen. Like, really? Like, wasn't it like week one, like day one clear, world first or whatever, used healer LB and still cleared? Nah, man. We need more like this. I'll give you that, Shiva. That's enough to keep you in worst fight ever made. Okay, so this tier was really easy, but it was also quite fun. However, this fight is probably the hardest first fight of a tier they've ever made. It isn't even that hard, but relatively speaking, and especially for Party Finder, this one, I mean, Tiles and Brambles, like, people still fuck them up all the time. How do I feel about the fight? B tier? I think it's alright. I think it's one of the better first tier fights. I don't care for the music because it's just a thing, and honestly, I hate the fan service of them just ripping Cloud of Darkness. It's so boring, but the fight itself is fine. Um, I don't have much to add other than Tiles isn't even that bad. I don't really like Tiles, but especially because everyone's too spread out, but it was okay fight. B tier. This one's a hard one because I actually kind of like this fight, but I actually almost okay. So this fight, when I was progging it, I was actually dozing off half the time. Um, because it was so fucking boring, and also my sleep schedule was awful. So I was like awake at like 2 a.m., raiding up to 5 a.m., and then going to work at like half six in the morning. Yeah. So that wasn't very nice, and that didn't help. The actual fight itself, C tier. I don't think it was awful, but people could not get their heads around the orbs. I don't even think Square Enix could get their heads around the orbs because I think those orbs were awful. Um, and because it may have seemed like I was shitting on Ilya before, I have to say the strat that I think people associated with Ilya, but ironically no one used in Party Finder, was the best strat for Void Gate 2, and no one ever used it, despite it being super bloody easy. So you can't win for losing, can you, man? You come up with a great strat and no one uses it. You come up with a bad strat and everyone uses it. So bad, so sad. I don't even know if he came up with a strat. I just remember someone calling it Ilya strat, and I was like, okay, so he made a good strat. That was great. I mean, I can't talk because I probably could make a strat. But yeah, the thing is I've never skipped Voidgate 2 because I've never had a grip good enough for it, and Party Finder wasn't skipping Voidgate 2. Like, no matter what you were expecting, they weren't skipping Voidgate 2. But I know the potential was there. It should have been easy, but it never happened. Okay, now this one is one of my more biased fights, and in a good way. This one's going to A tier. I was going to put it to B tier because it is super boring, and it is the only fight I've actually legit closed my eyes. I wouldn't say I fell asleep, but I closed my eyes for at least 10 seconds because I was that tired for taking my medicine, and because this fight is so fucking brain dead. It is one of the most brain dead fights they've ever made. It's so easy. But the reason why it is an A tier is because of one thing. I have never in my life ever seen a fight that is so perfectly made for a single job as this fight. Like, there's fights where classes or roles in general are good at, but this fight for Dragoon is like they were literally made by the same person and they were like born from the same mother. Like, they fit so well together. Everything lines up like it's amazing. I don't know why, but it was my funnest fight to optimize because it was built for Dragoon. Like, it was made for that class, I think. So for that, it gets an A tier because it was fucking amazing for that fight, that class. Now it's kind of weird. I've made it like 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, and 1. This tier list is split Gaia and Oracle, which is good because I would have done the same. Except I said the wrong name. Promise and Oracle. Oracle, I will promise. You know what? I'm willing to give you an S tier because I actually thought every mechanic that you had, except from there was one mechanic I didn't like, was the Shiva mechanic. And it was funny because now the Shiva mechanic would be perfectly fine, but on Dragoon, but then Dragoon was the only melee which didn't have a gap closer they could just save. And because of that, you would always have these fucking dumbass tanks slide into you and kill you with their bloody, I think it was the ice drop, because you had to like spread. But every other like tank or melee could save their jump in to like get extra uptime and stuff. Eventually, I figured out an amazing strat that was like almost foolproof, and it even gave me more uptime. But that only came about towards the end. While I was progging, it was not very nice for Dragoon on that mechanic. I loved how it like used mechanics from like all the old raids. I mean, kind of like for Ramu and stuff, it's like, oh, for Leviathan, it's just go in the middle lane. Like, they're just AoEs. It's nothing crazy from most of the fights. But when it comes to Shiva and Titan, they actually use the mechanics from those fights. So for that, I really like, I love that. And its music, I think it might actually be one of my favorite raid musics they ever made this phase. I loved it. I had a really struggling time, like personally, during this tier though. So, and especially with this fight. So, I'm surprised I can even rank it an S after all the shit that happened around that time. Um, Thankfully, I've moved on from that. But yeah. Now Oracle. So you're gonna break the tie here, Oracle. How are you gonna break it? I don't even know what to think about this fight. Alright, first off, we'll talk on the most subjective thing. I don't like that it uses the extreme. It does not even fit this at all because this isn't even Ultimisha. It's just its own character, but it uses the extreme for some reason. They should have given it its own song. I know the fan service, but I'm really against blind fan service. If there's fan service, I like it to be few, but I like it to be meaningful. But when you just have it for no reason, this entire raid was slightly less fan servicey than Omega, but still super fan servicey because we had, oh look, here's Ramu again. Oh, here's Shiva again. Oh, here's Titan again for like a billionth time. Titan, and he's probably going to come back. Garuda, and this one was the most unique. This one is fine. I think this one, even though it's fan servicey, I like this one for. I think this one gets a pass, but the rest of them, not really. It was fine. Funny seeing, especially Leviathan and Titan. It was fun seeing them, when they came out, but meh. So I don't like that about the music for this, but I also think the DPS check is way too light. But mechanically, you know what? You get an A. Actually, I think you were quite a good fight mechanically. Never cleared you too much times, and I never really optimized you well, but I think you're a pretty good fight. So that's what I think about that. Maybe I should have organized this a bit better, but that is my opinions on this entire raid series as a whole. And I hope Pandaemonium goes well as well. Right now we're having some issues with static issues, so we're struggling with that, but hopefully we can fix that and we can get in. I will be streaming Pandaemonium when it comes out, and we're going for like a really fast clear, relatively to me anyway. So yeah, and I'm also on Reaper if you haven't noticed, based on my last few videos. Anyway, I hope you all have a good time, and thanks for watching. Bye bye.